Hi everyone, welcome to the fifth webinar in our monthly webinar series, Recruiting Smarter. The topic for today's webinar is how to optimize your employer brand and candidate apply process. Before we begin, I'll cover a few housekeeping items. You can connect to the audio using your computer's microphone and speakers, or you may select use telephone after joining the webinar. All lines will be muted to avoid background noise. You can ask questions at any time by typing them in the questions pane. I'll save these for the last couple of minutes out of respect for everyone's time. Before we begin, I'd like to note you'll receive a copy of the slides and a recording of today's webinar in the next 24 hours, so look out for an email from our marketing team. I'd like to welcome our speakers for today. Our first speaker is Ahmed from Allegiant Travel Company. Rebecca is currently the Manager, Talent Acquisition and Employment Services at Allegiant Travel Company, an innovative travel company dedicated to providing the best travel deals to its customers. She has over 7 years of HR experience and has held leadership positions at organizations, including the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. Rebecca, thank you for joining us today. Our next speaker is our very own CMO, Bjorn Eriksson. Bjorn heads marketing at SmartRecruiters. He has a broad background in HR tech from marketing roles at LinkedIn, SuccessFactors, Lynda.com, and Evolve. And finally, we have Federer, Product Marketing Manager at Glassdoor. Kira manages product marketing of employer branding at Glassdoor. In her role, Kira seeks to help shape Glassdoor's overall product strategy for job seekers, HR professionals, talent acquisition experts, and Glassdoor candidates. Kira speaks as an industry expert on branding, employee engagement, and talent acquisition. Thank you for partnering with us, Kira. And with that, let's get started. Over to you, Kira.
Great. Thank you, guys. So let's go ahead and get started. And before diving into today's presentation, I want to provide a bit of information about Glassdoor, our community of job seekers, employers, and give some context as to why we're part of today's presentation. So Glassdoor is one of the fastest growing job sites in the U.S. In fact, we've got over 30 million unique monthly visitors coming to Glassdoor each day, typically coming to learn what it's like to work for different organizations. We're in 580,000 companies, 190 countries, with a really highly diversified audience taking a look at those jobs each day. And Glassdoor is how people find jobs today. In fact, we see that 4 in 5 users are either actively looking for jobs or open to better opportunities. And because of the scale of our audience, we're able to collect both this data and a lot more to understand what candidates are looking for, what they like and don't like about interviews or employers, and use that to help employers better understand their own employees and future employees as well. Now let's talk about why SmartRecruiters is on the line.
Hi everyone, once again thank you for joining us on this webinar. I'm Bjorn Eriksson and I head the marketing department at SmartRecruiters. Before I begin, I'd just like to give you a few data points around SmartRecruiters and who we are. So we are a next generation applicant tracking system, and our mission is to help companies find, attract, and hire great talent. And we do that better than anybody else because our system is very intuitive. So everyone on the hiring team will want to use this platform. And the collaboration that enables is the foundation for hiring success. Number 2, we have a very powerful platform that scales all the way from SMB up to global enterprises like Alcoa and Visa. Number 3, we have a very complete set of functionality all the way from recruitment, marketing, hiring, and analytics, and that's fully integrated out of the box. And finally, it's really easy to implement. It's a low effort to both implement and configure so that you can get up and running without relying too much on IT. So this is really resonating with a large number of companies out there. So here we're just showcasing some of them. For companies like MicroStrategy, Alcoa, Atlassian, Ubisoft, Skechers, Alaska Airlines, Expeditors, and Visa are customers and are really happy with the effect that they can get from our system.
Thanks for sharing, Bjorn. Now let's go ahead and dive into the presentation, starting with a quick snapshot of the current job search process and really how it's impacting employers today. what we're finding that we really are seeing a new normal, and the days of blindly applying for a job are long past. Today's candidates, they really are spending more time researching than ever before, and they're treating the job search as a critical decision. And they're relying on reviews, research, and referrals before moving forward with any concrete decision. And how we successfully attract this talent has changed. Because job seekers behave so much more like consumers today, with more access to information than ever before, we're seeing them really carefully consider their choices. So I'd say we all go online, right, to research before we buy. Between a Google search, looking on Amazon, maybe for TripAdvisor, we're reading reviews about what it may be like to stay somewhere. And job seekers are really conducting themselves in the same way. I would say if we think about the research we've seen, we're finding that job seekers use an average of 18 sources before applying and looking at 7 to 8 reviews to research. So we're seeing, again, the consumption of information has changed significantly. Job seekers today want to learn the critical information about a company before applying, before interviewing, or even accepting an offer. And they really want a window to learn what it's actually like to work for that organization.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Kira. Obviously, candidates want to work for cool companies. Your brand matters to them, and it reflects back on them. This really, really matters, right? Okay, let's do it again. Couldn't agree with you more, Kira. Candidate wants to work for companies that have a good brand, and that really matters to them because obviously the company that they join reflects back on them. So they have a lot of choice in today's market, and they want a great brand that makes them proud. Number 2, candidates are much less patient now than they were just 5 or 10 years ago. They don't have patience to apply on long forms that take a long, long time to fill. And companies who don't get these lose candidates. Finally, candidates are really tech savvy now, and they don't want to wait until they get back home and can log on to their PC or Mac. They want to apply where they are, and that means that you have to have a great mobile experience. And if you don't have that, you will miss that moment of truth where you could have caught the candidates.
And job seekers want to hear everyone's perspective. The type of sources they're looking to include family and friends, of course, but also really include hearing directly from employees themselves, and what it's really like inside the walls of your organization, from a voice that really sounds much more like theirs. We're finding that while, of course, family and friends are certainly the most trusted when it comes to receiving information or content about what a workplace may be like, second to that is going to be employee reviews. Those are the most trusted source of information on a company. And Rebecca, what are you all finding at Allegiant?
Because candidates are doing so much research on employers' culture and brand, at Allegiant, we've really focused on diversifying our information and promoting candidates to leave real-time feedback. So basically, after each interview we conduct, candidates receive an auto-generated message to rate their interview experience on Glassdoor, and they're also asked to follow us on LinkedIn. Additionally, in 2016, we launched a Glassdoor announcement within Allegiant for team members to provide feedback on how it means to work with Allegiant. Our goal is to be really focused on one of our core values, which is transparency and accountability. So candidates know what they're getting into by applying with Allegiant. And what we found is what candidates really want. So they wanted information on our culture, they wanted information on our compensation philosophy, and then also they wanted to hear about growth opportunities, even if it's not within the organization, at least how they can develop themselves through learning and development opportunities.
Thanks, Rebecca. That's great advice for other talent acquisition professionals. Everyone, as Rebecca just demonstrated, this balance of power shift has really happened, and it's moved all the way from the employer to the candidate. And that really means that the role of the recruiter is changing, and it's becoming much broader than it's ever been before. So the recruiter now has to be all of a networker, an innovator, and a data scientist. So by networker, I mean build that network and maintain talent pools of candidates for all the jobs that you're trying to fill. Number 2, you need to be creative and you need to be an innovator to find new ways to stand out and capture that talent. And finally, number 3, you really need that analytics skill to report on pipeline, and make sure that you put your money and your resources and your time in the best spots possible to get the effect that you want, which is to have the best people in the right places.
And Bjorn's exactly right. The role of a recruiter really has changed significantly. So what does this mean for you as an employer? Well, we know the time it takes to recruit has nearly doubled in the last 5 years. And what may have previously taken just a couple weeks is now closer to a month. And we're finding even upwards of 3 or even 6 months for some hard to fill roles. I know we feel this at Glassdoor all the time. We are in a high demand market, and when we're searching for high demand roles, it can take double, triple our average time to fill those hires. So, and Bjorn, what does that look like from your lens regarding competition?
Yeah, so when we look at our network, we see that 47% of the declined offers that companies had were due to candidates accepting other offers. So that really means that the majority of people have more than going at the same time. So it is competitive. Secondly, the numbers that we get back on this varies, but at least half of the employees out there are looking for a new job. Some surveys put this more closer to 2/3, but there's a large number of people who are looking to find a new job. Not only the unemployed, but also the employed are there working actively to improve their lot in life.
And it's interesting. So if we know that so many candidates are looking for a new position, they're open to a new opportunity, the next question is really how can we really take advantage of that? Well, we know, again, we mentioned earlier that candidates are using up to 18 sources. So we think they're bound to run into your employer brand story, and then at some point during that journey, we have to make sure the employer brand story really stands out. So let's go ahead and dive into what that could look like for our organization. Really, with defining your employer story, it's really important to start and first consider what candidates want to know. We often talk about putting ourselves in a candidate's shoes. When we think about the content they care about and how we win them over, it's really through that compelling employer brand and an exceptional candidate experience. So when we start to form our own story about who our company is and the information candidates will use to evaluate it, these are the top 5 things that they're most concerned with. So you can go ahead and take a look at 5 candidate interests are, number 1, what makes it an attractive place to work? This is why you versus the next company that they may get an offer from or may get potentially an interview with. The compensation they will make, and I love to point this out. Take a look, compensation is not number 1. It does come in second place behind why you are great. And after that, we've got benefits, mission, values, and vision for number 4. And number 5, basic company information. So it's helpful to keep these top 5 candidate interests top of mind as we begin to curate every place we're telling our employer brand story. But just because so many companies are incorporating company stories, it doesn't mean they're doing it well. We hear that it is best practice, but there aren't many people that are promoting it in a way that we believe candidates are captured by. Candidates can easily spot marketing jargon and cheesy stock photos. We all know them all too well. And so that's not what they want to see. They want to see something real. They want to see something authentic. And they want to hear, again, from a voice that sounds like theirs and a perspective that they can relate to. As well as, they'd also want to hear how the employer responds. If any of these are done in review form, we'd love to hear the employer's voice married in the same place that the employee's is.
Thanks, Kira. I couldn't agree more. This is really the things, how the recruiter's job is changing. And there are 2 parts to that. It's what do you do differently, and then how do you get that stuff done? And the important thing there to look for is that technology does not get in your way. So what we're hearing from our customers that they want in recruitment marketing. They want a fantastic apply experience. There has to be one-click apply using your LinkedIn or Facebook profile. The employer brand needs to be consistent across recruiting channels. It has to be fast. right? And it's got to work on mobile. Click the link, look at the job, understand what this job is about, click the link in your cell phone and move on. And also candidates obviously want to understand where they are in the application process. So how do you understand, was your application received? Is it being considered? And do you ever hear back after you go in for an interview? Things like that really matter for your employer brand. So how does this look in our product? So obviously I wouldn't have been talking so much about this if we didn't have it. But when you're applying to one of the tens of thousands of platform, you can do a one-click apply through LinkedIn, Indeed, or upload your resume if that's your preference. When it comes to consistent branding, this looks like Facebook. You can build any number of landing pages and just drag your own JPEGs in the right slots to build up a landing page for the candidate that does not require IT to help out. And finally, obviously, same thing. Hit your phone, use your iPad, apply through those devices using LinkedIn or Indeed, or upload your resume. Rebecca, how do you work with this at Allegiant?
So I'm kind of laughing, and if anyone participating in this webinar is seeing all of your amazing tools, either from SmartRecruiters or Glassdoor, and thinking I don't have these, what I can say is Allegiant doesn't either, and we haven't really gotten there. But we're starting to catch up. In this past year, to catch us up in this competitive market, we partnered with marketing to start defining what is our employer brand, and then we leverage free sites like Glassdoor to start asking for information and posting updates about our brand and activities. This is the same with LinkedIn. This is the same with Indeed. Additionally, we really educated our team members on how they can become brand ambassadors. So we have a team of 7 in talent acquisition, but we have 3,500 team members. So leveraging those brand ambassadors to post accordingly and give information out to our candidates really has helped our brand. And that's kind of everything on my end, I would say, in terms of these questions.
Right, and now we understand. Thanks again, Rebecca. Actually, I actually should pause and say thank you for being candid. I think we feel similarly here at Glassdoor. We talk about best practices, but I think it is spot on to mention that we're not all doing it perfectly, and it's a lot of work. And I would say just the same point you made for Allegiant, Glassdoor also, we always have improvements we can be making on our side too. So now, I'll head back to the agenda and we'll walk through really what our final stop is that now we understand how to tell our employer story and where candidates can go to find it. Now we can assume we're getting them to our door, right? So they've done their research, they've interacted with our employer story, and the next step is to understand what happens now. First of all, we need to understand who we're attracting and who these candidates are. So we can dive into the data a bit here and take a deeper look. So using Glassdoor data, you can begin to evaluate the types of candidates that are researching you, applying for your company, and when they're applying, what sources are getting them to the application process. So take a look here. Who are they? What are the top job titles that are coming in? Where are they located? I love to take a look at top locations. Are the people that are researching us in the location that we are recruiting in, or are we setting ourselves up to potentially have to relocate? And which talent competitors are they also interested in? So if we see these top companies, these are candidates before or after having researched my company, these are the other companies they're engaging with and they're researching. So this is really helpful. Are these companies that are in my industry, in my geography? Oftentimes, these talent competitors aren't always who you think they are. And what about from your end, Bjorn? What does it look like?
Thanks, Kira. I just want to take a few minutes to show what this looks like in our product specifically and with data from our own company. So we think it's really important to not only understand the demographics and who you're competing with, but which channels are working the best for communicating. So here we're looking at which sources did we get candidates from. So LinkedIn, Craigslist, and Indeed Pro. And then we have pracush.pl. And that is because half our company is in Krakow, Poland, and we have a lot of engineers applying to jobs in Krakow through Pracush. So once we know how many people come in, we want to refine that, and we want to look at what is the quality of people, of candidates coming in through all of these sources. And so we have on the left we have the source. After that, we're going to look at how many jobs we advertised at each source, how many candidates we got, how many we interviewed, and how many we hired. So using that information, we can get some pretty interesting data. So CTI, candidate to interview. How many people, what's the quality of the resumes that come in? How many people were actually even worth talking to? And we see here that for each candidate from LinkedIn, we get 28 resumes for everyone we talk to. From Craigslist, that ratio is 66 resumes for every person we talk to. We can look at candidate to hire ratio. We can also look at candidate quality because we have integrated recruitment, marketing, and ATS, so we can actually look at the reviews that these people get. Furthermore, to the right then, we can overlay what we spend to advertise per channel and look at spend per candidate, spend per interviewee, and spend per hire to find out which of these channels really bring the best value. And there are some interesting things just in this one where we see that LinkedIn has a much higher spend per candidate compared to Craigslist. The other. So Craigslist gives us a lot of candidates, but they are not of the same quality in the end, and we actually end up paying less for them. So another thing we want to look at here is how over time are our applicant sources changing. So this is from our own company, where in 2014 we saw about 1,500 candidates from organic sources and 200 from internal referrals. As our brand has expanded and our presence in the market has expanded, the organic candidates that come to our webpage to apply have almost doubled, but the referred candidates internally hasn't expanded in the same at the same pace. So what does that mean for you? It means that our brand is growing stronger and faster than our actual company is growing. I think I covered everything on this slide. We want to really understand per channel, right? How much we're spending and how much we're getting back from that spend.
Bjorn, I have to say, this is really powerful data. I think everything you guys are seeing with your brand growth, but also the data that you have available here, this compare and contrast. This is exactly the data that helps us really dive into not only what our brand is doing, our recruiting process, and probably even the data behind our candidate experience. So thank you again for sharing that. That's very interesting to see. I think next we can go ahead and understand what's going well and what can be improved with that kind of data, as well as the kind of data we offer on our site as well. Unfortunately, we can't participate and learn from every interview, so we know that we're going to look for the data to tell us a bit more about what our candidates are saying exactly about when they come through our doors for an interview. So now we can evaluate how our interview process compares, and based on the feedback that candidates are leaving. We can use the built-in word clouds and begin to see common trends. These are the words that pop up most often from candidate feedback. Now, once a candidate says yes or no, we can really dive into who we lost during the process. And I think this is really powerful. Sometimes we learn more from who we lost than even who we gained. You take a look at that. Of these reviews left for a specific department or function or level, even location or job title, what's my acceptance rate? For example, how does that compare in my Milwaukee office versus my Boston office? Maybe I can compare what the acceptance rate of my marketing department is to my engineering or finance department. And if there's a large discrepancy, for example, if I have a shining star of a department or a location, now I can really understand and identify my hiring superstars. Let's take a look. What are they doing well, and what can the rest of the organization learn from it? Sometimes we'll take a look at a particular department that's been incredibly successful, and we'll actually bring them in and host a skill share or a session where they're able to share with their peers in other offices or other departments and really train on how to adopt some of their own best practices. So I know if you're reading this, especially as a large organization, you're wondering, where do you start? You'll need to dive into the team, the department, the job function, and then location as well. I think next we can take a look at what the candidates are feeling about their application experience. What are your thoughts on that, Bjorn?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to understand that as well. So how do they feel, capitalized feel about this application experience is what really matters. And where are they coming from? Are you getting a high number of inbound candidates to you? That's probably a good indication that you have a good brand. And then, is there a high candidate drop-off rate? Are you losing them throughout the process? Then, if you're doing that, you probably need to look at what's going on in each step of that chain. And finally, are you getting the right quality? Right? Are you getting the people that you want? Again, find, engage, and hire. It's a chain, right? And if any of those links are off, then you will not get the results that you want. Would love to have your perspective on this, Rebecca.
Well, at Allegiant, to better understand our candidates, we have used data analytics from our favorite vendors. So with Glassdoor, we're able to provide feedback based on each role to hiring managers to review and adjust accordingly if need be. Additionally, we've partnered or integrated with vendors who assist with different types of assessments. That could be cultural-based or skill-based, reference checks, video interview technology. And lastly, we created a survey for new hires to complete to evaluate their application experience, their onboarding experience, their interview experience, even through orientation. So the entire process is really fresh in their mind. However, even with all of these tools, I would still recommend partnering with an ATS who can house and integrate with vendors. So everything's really in one spot. As you said, in today's day and age, technology shouldn't be something that's getting in the way. And this is kind of where SmartRecruiters really comes in. So if you want to take it from here and go into the technology of SmartRecruiters, that'd be great.
I 100% agree with you, Erica. Our customers, Rebecca. Our customers love the fact that we have a marketplace where their favorite background check, assessments, and other vendors are pre-integrated. We have about 300 marketplace partners, and we add 8 to 10 more every quarter. And another thing that I love with our platform as a hiring manager is that all those test results are shown in the same place, and that really helps me make the right decision. When I look at the resume, the interview feedback, together with all the different assessments and background tests.
I love that point, Bjorn. I think having all of this data in a comprehensive way really helps us understand, because it's a long threaded story. And in fact, we can talk a bit about what the candidate experience data looks like and time to hire comparison. Now we understand on our own candidate experience, we need to evaluate. We've talked a lot about ourselves, but how do we compare to our competitors as well is another element of that. I know candidates get into a job-seeking mentality, and I recognize that once they're in that job-seeking mentality, it's not just our own organization, but of course a lot of those same talent and industry and geographical competitors that they're looking at around the same time. So we can dive into data like the one you see on the screen here and understand what candidates are saying and how do we stack up both in what is positive and what is negative compared to our competitors. So for example, let's walk through this graph so we can all digest it for a moment. So let's assume we're company A. So 60% of my interview candidates say they had a positive experience. The reason that that is red is because it is benchmarking it to the Glassdoor average, so it's slightly under. But 60% of these interview candidates say they had a positive experience. Compared to company B, for example, I'm doing fantastic. I'm heads and shoulders above where they stand. And then let's look at the interview outcome. More candidates are accepting my offers than competitors. So according to me, I'm doing pretty well, right? I've got a positive experience. People are accepting my offers. Until we keep moving, we take a look at the interview cycle time. So even if I have a better experience and a higher acceptance rate, I could still lose candidates because of my interview cycle time. We see that I'm almost double the time of my competitor. If I've got a candidate that's in the job-seeking mode, they interview with competitor B, and even if they are not quite as positive outcome or experience, they know that it's going to take, I know that it'll take me twice as long to hire. I could lose that candidate in the meantime. So we can look at this data and understand where we're doing well and where we can improve. So, for example, at Glassdoor, we work really hard on our candidate experience. And when our head of HR looked at our hiring process, for us, we realized we had 7 steps. So 7 steps to complete the interview process. And it makes sense because we didn't want to make a bad decision. And we know that that can be incredibly costly. But in those 7 steps, it was dragging out our time to hire, and our competitors were able to come in and hire our candidates because of our lengthy process. So this type of data can really help us educate us on opportunities exactly like that. And for you guys over at SmartRecruiters, Bjorn, I know you guys have additional information that really speaks to similar pipeline.
No, we do.
Data.
So you make a really good point about interview cycle time and time to hire, and that's one of the biggest pain points we hear from new customers coming into us, that they were losing candidates because they were doing everything right, but they were just moving a little bit too slowly. So we provide dashboards to help recruiters and their managers look and understand how is the pipeline movement, both across the entire org, per jobs and per department, to really drill down into where is there an issue and then go after that.
You know, I think we know that once we've told our employer branding story, we are not only dealing with this time to hire, but we also, of course, have the dreaded, as you mentioned, the dreaded counteroffer. So we can take a look actually at the data that we see here to understand how we could potentially navigate through those counteroffers. So again, we'll walk through this particular one and consider on company A. And I could place in really any competitor I so choose to compare myself in the column in which we see company B, C, and D. But in this example, my overall rating is a 4.2 versus company C, it's 4.3. So they're slightly ahead of me. But you can see that if I have a candidate, let's just say I have a candidate that cares a lot about comp and benefits. My org scores a 4.3. So I'm really going to play that up, and I'm going to stress that particular candidate. However, if my candidate really wants to talk about culture and values, and I have a 4.3 while it's strong, it's versus a 4.8 of company C, it is lower. So I, as a recruiter, would have to really go ahead and have a talk track there, have a story that I can be prepared with of where we win and where we potentially have an area for development, and speaking to that in an authentic way. So a big takeaway I'd call here is to have a story ready for your candidates based on the things they care about and the times that they may ask those tough questions of what that looks like. And Rebecca, maybe you can tell us a bit about how Allegiant works in this candidate experience process.
For sure. So, I mean, I love the Glassdoor product and being able to compare us within our own industry and also companies that we primarily recruit from. So we've kind of set it up to compare to other airlines. So Frontier, JetBlue, Southwest, even the legacy carriers, just to kind of see how we compare for candidates. But what we saw is that we also heavily pull from a lot of the hotels, being that we're in Las Vegas. And so, for instance, we've compared ourselves to Caesar's Palace and what are they really doing well and where are areas that we can improve upon, especially based on more of our corporate positions, I would say, than our airline-specific positions. And at the end of the day, we really just focus on our brand and differentiating ourselves. We own who we are. It's just as important for candidates to understand what it means to have a career at Allegiant as it is for us to understand that candidate. Because they're interviewing us just as much as we're interviewing them. So it's got to be a good fit and match both ways.
100%. I think the fact that they're interviewing you just as much as, or the interview power is really balancing on both sides is a great point. And Rebecca, your point about owning who you are, that is probably what we hear over and over again when we see our list of best companies to work for and best places to work. That authenticity and that transparency, I think, is always such a big differentiator, really. Sounds like also how Allegiant sets itself apart.
For sure.
We'll take a look and see that now that we've walked through the candidate's journey, really the data behind it, what they're looking for, and how we can use that information to evaluate the candidate experience, we may have, guys, we could have overwhelmed someone on the line. It could be, this is a lot of data. It's powerful, but we often can leave people wondering, where do they start? So we've boiled those down to a few quick wins for everyone on the line to consider for next steps. So we've mentioned this before. I would say over and over again, think like a candidate. Research our company, research your company and your competitors in the same way that a candidate would. Here we typed benefits at Allegiant into Google. And as you can see, the top results are Glassdoor. So it's crucial to be involved in the conversations that are going on Glassdoor, because we know that it's defining how candidates are viewing Allegiant and work life there and the benefits. I would say read your reviews. Even if it's scary, dive in there, take a look at what people are saying today, and understand, does it match the initiatives you have at your organization? Is this what you would say about yourself? And are the benefits that you think set you apart in your mission, are those being heard? So we know if this is what candidates are finding, is it the message that you're also trying to promote? And I would say, if we're considering one of your open recs, what do you find when you search for your company? So someone may see a job listing anywhere, but then when they go to do the research, are they seeing, again, the message that you would tell about yourself? So that's what I would say from my end. How about from your end, Bjorn?
Yeah, I think the most important thing here is it's hard, but take a step back and be the candidate. And imagine you're the candidate and walk through your own experience and see, what does that feel like? Is this something that I feel when I'm the candidate really reflects the way I want it to be? How does it feel? Do I take pride in what it looks like when the candidate applies to my jobs? Is there a long application form? Can you apply with one click? Do you need to save after 30 minutes to go and get a cup of coffee? If you do need to do that, then maybe you should take a step back and rethink that process.
Agreed. I love it, walking through your candidate experience and feeling what that is. It intuitive. So it also mentioned to identify which departments have created a fantastic candidate experience using some of the data mentioned today. I would say use those internal ambassadors to educate and train their peers on their best practices. This is really a free and easy way to make a positive impact quickly. You've got those internal resources likely. Let's use them. Not only is it great for our organization, but it really also empowers some of our top performers.
Very cool. Thanks for that, Kira. So in summary, right, there are two parts to this story. It's what do you do, and then it is what technology do you have that enables you to do that. So what we would recommend here, find the platform that makes it easy for you to showcase your employer brand and without relying on your IT department. Social apply really increases the speed that people move through a process. Give candidates a means to apply on the go, and finally, make sure to track the candidate quality. How are you getting good people? In the end, right, that is the ultimate metric, not time to fail or anything like that. Are you getting good people? Rebecca, what do you think about this, and how are you working at Allegiant?
So I would agree with all of the above recommendations, and if you were in the same boat we were in a little bit over a year ago, I would recommend, just to even get started, first partner with marketing, start defining your employer brand, use free sites to evaluate who you want to partner with in the future to promote information about your culture, job opportunities, videos. And actually, I'm going to go back to one of Kira's points when she said it's kind of hard to read your reviews and really taking that information and using it to change your process. But for most of you on this webinar, you're coming from the talent acquisition side. The really cool thing I think about Glassdoor and getting these reviews is you can use it to show a hiring manager. They might have a preconceived notion about, what they want to do to get the right candidate, but you have information direct from candidates that you can kind of prove them wrong in that sense and say, this is what they want and this is how you can leverage this information. So yes, take it for what it's worth and take it as a positive and an opportunity. And then you can create processes that focus on that candidate experience and reduce time to fill. You can optimize your application process and career website. And then lastly, use data to drive decisions to move forward. This is, data will help you make all decisions more black and white, I would say, than anything else.
I love that point, Rebecca, especially in the candidate experience and candidate feedback conversation. Data is probably the most helpful way that we can really drive some of those conversations. So I'll say that a lot of the data we walked through from the Glassdoor side today, it is available immediately on Glassdoor, and you can get started if you're on the line listening and are not currently working with Glassdoor. You can go ahead and get started with a free employer account, which allows you to read your reviews, of course, and respond to them. As I mentioned, we really want to hear that employer voice. We can see the type of candidates that are currently interested in your company, where they're coming from, their job titles, other competitors they may be researching, as well as begin to fine-tune your employer story there. So that really is the first step to going ahead and getting started on Glassdoor.
Very cool. So I just want to reiterate very briefly that we have a platform that gets out of the way and lets you Skechers. And one of the things I love to showcase is the Skechers career site. I think I'm really proud of what that experience looks like and how easy it is to apply. So go and check that out.
Well, thanks, Kira, Rebecca, and Bjorn. That was very insightful. I really enjoyed the segment, and I'm sure our audience did as well. It's now time for questions. And the first question is, where does Glassdoor get competitors' information on candidate experience and time to hire? Is this in Glassdoor Pro?
Yep, I'm happy to answer that. So where do we get our information? All of our information is what we call user-generated content. So this is essentially, if you sign up for Glassdoor today as a user, you'll be prompted to just leave one piece of content, whether that's a review, a piece of salary information, benefit information, and in doing that, you get access to our entire database of information. So then we have that growing data. So this data does come from information reviews that were left by other candidates and other job seekers. And the next question was, is this included in Glassdoor Pro? So the question being is this included for either paid or free? Some of the information we walked through today was completely free. A lot of the information about who those candidates are, where they're coming from, and you can really begin to access that via the free employer account. Some of it was also included in our actual Glassdoor products for purchase, but I would say if you aren't using Glassdoor today, you can start with a free employer account to get started.
Okay, thank you, Kira. The second question is, how do you source your interview feedback? Does this integrate with SmartRecruiters?
Yeah, so SmartRecruiters is a full recruitment marketing and applicant tracking solution. And so you definitely enter your interview feedback and fill out the scorecard. We really, really recommend our customers to work with scorecards, where some questions are about the company culture in general, and some questions are about the role in general. So we like to have 3 criteria in the scorecard that are about fit with the company, and 3 or 4 that are must-haves for this role. And we encourage the entire interview team to fill that in. And our product then is built around a social feed that encourages debate about candidates. So for example, if Nupur here reviewed one candidate one way and I had a different opinion, after we have given those reviews, we can actually get together in that social feed and discuss back and forth to try to understand each other's feedback. So yes, the interview feedback is in the product, and it's a highly social experience.
That's great, Bjorn. Our next question is, how do you roll out a campaign to employees to get Glassdoor feedback?
Good question.
You want me to take this one?
Oh, that'd be great, Rebecca. Yeah.
I can just at least speak for what we did at Allegiant. So most people actually didn't know that that's where you left feedback, and so it was more of an educational campaign to start. So we have what we call People Services Express, and we launched it out to all of the organization on different projects that we're working on and how that affects them. And one of them was, have you checked out Glassdoor lately? Have you seen what your candidates are saying about you, your interview experience? Have you checked out what your employees are saying about you? So first it was more of an education touch point, and then we did more of a launch throughout the company of just promoting, go, say what you think about Allegiant, and go on to Glassdoor, and kind of just gave out, giveaways, and it was a whole Glassdoor, I would say, day across the entire organization. And that really gave insight to people, and okay, we have we have this ability to give honest feedback, but also see what our candidates are saying. So that's how I'd recommend to do it, and we got really positive feedback from the launch.
Thank you, Rebecca. The next question is, can you describe the social apply options and the benefits of it?
So I can take a stab, and then I'll hand it over to Kira. And number one, it's primarily, first and foremost, about lowering the bar to get that application, because we see a tremendous drop-off, when the application experience takes a long time. You have to go through page after page with background information. So number one is just get the application and engage with that candidate. Number two is it really increases the accuracy of the data that we get, because it's much easier to import data from Indeed or LinkedIn than it is to parse a resume again, or even worse, force the candidate to enter their background information in some kind of text field where they have misspellings, and the formatting is often very hard to get through. I'm sure you can add a lot to that, Kira. No, maybe not.
No, I may have missed you. Yeah. Could you repeat that?
So the question was, can you describe social apply options and what the benefits are for the recruiting process when you allow candidates to apply through social profiles? Is there any data that you have seen around that from the Glassdoor side?
I don't have data specifically on hand for social applies. I would say we speak about applying through Glassdoor. Specifically, I know that a particular study we've seen is that one particular employer found that candidates that came through Glassdoor or interacted with Glassdoor were able to see that transparent story and that transparent view of a company. As long as they were influenced on Glassdoor as one of their social channels, they were actually 30% more likely to be hired. That's for Glassdoor specifically. That may be the quickest stat that comes to mind for me when it comes to social.
Thank you, Kira. The next question is, other than wages, what are the common reasons for candidate drop-off? Is wage the biggest drop-off factor? Rebecca, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. I think that's a great question. We get asked about the importance of compensation all the time. And I would say over and over again, we're finding that compensation is not number one. Maybe two, maybe three, but not the number one reason that candidates drop off. It'll often have to do with people are looking at what it's actually like to work for a company. And in fact, when we think about millennials specifically, we know that millennials' number one motivator is career trajectory and confidence in their career growth. So it's really not salary. We're actually seeing motivators for millennials specifically to be around, I would say salary looks for like number 3, number 4 reason they wouldn't take a position. I would say job seekers in general are really no different. While it is, of course, important, I think your company culture and what their day-to-day life is going to look like and feel like is even more important.
I would agree with that. And I would also say, just because, SmartRecruiters was talked about the speed of hire and time to fill and making it so easy for an application. What I see at Allegiant is when we lose a candidate to someone else, it's because we're not moving fast enough. Somebody's applying to multiple companies. They've already done their research up front, so they know they're interested in Allegiant, but they're also potentially interested in some of our competitors. And if we're not fast enough to get to them and move them through that process, they'll take another offer ahead of ours. And compensation could not even be a factor. We're not even talking, deep dive into compensation yet. It's more, hey, this company is more interested in me and they're moving quicker.
Great. Thank you, Kira and Rebecca. The next question is, how can you express company culture and job ads to attract candidates?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one, and then I know I've been chatting a lot, but how can you express company culture in job ads? I think this is a fantastic question, and I want to give credit to whoever asked this, because this is definitely someone who is thinking about how they can really make sure that candidate experience, that company culture message is clear and permeating throughout every channel. I would say take a look at where you're posting, and take a look at the actual job description. On Glassdoor, for example, our job descriptions for our clients are branded, meaning that if I, as a candidate, land on your sponsored job description, I'm able to see a cover photo of your workplace. Maybe I can quickly access a featured video. Reviews are built in to just live right under the job description. Also a why work for us section. But say on your end as the employer, not only can you control that branded information, but I recommend why not at the end of a job description put a small blurb about what a particular employee in that role today is saying. You can even go and get that from Glassdoor. Place in a quote from a Glassdoor review in the bottom of your job description. And for that same candidate, if someone were to apply to that job, feel free to follow up with a copy and pasted review from that particular department, from that particular location. So it's a strong way to insert the employee voice into that job description. And really, ideally, we're able to find some reviews that highlight what our culture looks and feels like and what differentiates us. So great question.
Thank you. The next question is, where does the after-interview metrics come from?
So in SmartRecruiters, we recommend a 5-grade scale inside the system, just like Google. By the way, Google has a really funny definition of what those levels mean. So at Google, if you rate somebody a 1, it means if you hire this person, I quit. If you rate somebody a 5, it means if you don't hire this person, I quit. We're not that extreme, but we have a 5-grade scale, and the way we recommend that means is, number 1 means not this job and no other job in this company. 2 means not this job, but let's keep this person in the candidate pool. 3 means I'm okay hiring this person. 4 means this would be a really cool person to work with, and 5 means this is a total game changer. So every single person that meets a candidate rates them on that scale. So there are 2 parts to that, right? Number 1, have a system that every single person in the hiring team uses to get the data in there. If you don't have that, you have nothing. And number 2, be very clear so that everyone uses the same criteria.
Thank you, Bjorn. The next question is, should we respond to people's reviews who are no longer with the company, and how far back?
I assume this pertains to Glassdoor.
Yeah, we get these questions a lot, and I think it's a good question. And while that individual may not work for your organization anymore, now it's time to think about the candidate. And just as Bjorn and Rebecca have mentioned previously, it's really about putting yourself in the candidate's shoes. The candidate is still reading this interview. So we're still having those views to this particular review. And I would say if someone's still reading this review, then we should respond to it. If there's a likelihood that your ideal candidate could come across this review, respond. Even if they're not a current employee, and you can even address them of, thank you for the time you served with the organization, thank you for the time you spent with the organization. and then dive into your response to the review. So I think it's completely okay to respond to a review of someone who does not work there, because we know these reviews will influence our candidates and future employees.
I agree. And when I've had some touchy reviews and thought, how am I going to respond to this? I just run it by PR. I mean, it's external facing. It's good to partner with them anyway. And you can bounce off ideas of how would you respond, because they're dealing with this day in, day out, usually with customers. So on Facebook, Instagram, et cetera. So they usually can tailor a response if you're a little nervous on how to respond.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question, I think, would be a Rebecca question. How do you get buy-in from employees to become brand ambassadors?
So a couple different things come to mind. So I would first say is really defining and giving them some information about how to be a brand ambassador. So if you give them kind of the keywords and what our brand focuses on, this can help leverage what they post, and then also have them follow your company on Glassdoor, follow them on LinkedIn, so they're seeing kind of the information that's appropriate to post. And then they feel more comfortable speaking to our company information. Right now, our career website is not up to date, but I think that'll be a big win for Allegiant once we do update that, because they'll be able to reference different promotions that we're running in recruitment and share information, whether it's our job positions or events that we're hosting. So it's really about, I think, education overall and giving them a comfort level to say, okay, I can be this brand ambassador and I know the information that's accurate to tell other candidates.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm afraid we're going to have to cut short here because we're running short of time. Thank you all for attending the webinar. If you have any questions or comments, then we're here to help. Please contact sales@smartrecruiters.com. Also, we have a short survey at the end, and we'd be delighted if you could spare a few seconds to fill it in. We're constantly trying to improve, and this would help us in that regard. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.